Bis die letzten schon mal eingetrudelt sind, kann ich schon mal anfangen, den Professor Dr. Laszlo Szarka vorzustellen. Dieser ist aus Shopron, ist Geophysiker und Mitglied der Ungarischen Akademie der Wissenschaften. Er war selber Generaldirektor des Forschungszentrums für Astronomie und Geowissenschaften. In der ersten Hälfte seiner Karriere arbeitete er in der elektromagnetischen Induktionsgeophysik in Sopron, wo er sich immer mehr für Umweltfragen interessierte und deren Widersprüche natürlich. Er erhielt zahlreiche Auszeichnungen, darunter den Akademischen Jugendpreis 1988, verliehen von der Ungarischen Akademie für Wissenschaften, und er ist Clintel-Botschafter. Clintel haben wir heute schon einmal gehört in Verbindung mit Marcel Crook. Und jetzt darf ich vorstellen, Professor Dr. Laszlo Szarka mit dem Thema Wie viel, was ist wie viel? Über die Notwendigkeit quantitativer Studien in der Klima- und Energiewissenschaft. Herzlich willkommen.
Danke. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my title in English. As you can see, I have quite a lot of co-authors. All of them are Hungarian professors, deeply committed to traditional European values. Seeing the dramatic energy developments in Europe and in Hungary, and feeling our responsibility, the so-called Batyány Society of Professors, a conservative group of Hungarian scientists, 2 years ago established an energy working group. Last year, we published a comprehensive study for decision makers, both in Hungarian and in English. The title of the study, How Much? What is how much? The title comes from an old joke in Hungary as follows. The captain shouts down to the ship engine room to the stoker. How much? 30 is the answer. 30 what? Asks the captain. What is how much? Asks the stoker. So, as you can see, and we have experiences, it shows a complete confusion. In this talk, I would like to introduce our study and present some relative quantitative results. So I forgot my computer because the okay. So this is the first insight to your study, Chapter 1, Sustainable Development and Energy. And the message is very basic, energy, but it's important for Hungarian decision makers. The energy is the basis of our civilization. Our energy carriers come from the conversion of natural energies. Chapter 2, we are on a wrong way. And in order to deal meaningfully with any issue, it is first of all necessary to get rid of unclear definitions and narratives that are far removed from physical reality. About chapters 4 and 3 and 4 I will discuss later. The overall situation in European Union, at least before the European Parliament election, I think it is illustrated the best by Paul the Apostle. For the time will come when people will not tolerate healthy doctrine, but with itching ears will surround themselves with teachers who cater to their people's own desires. They will refuse to listen to the truth and will turn to myths. I found it in German. So myths, Fabeln, will be indicated following John Clauser's May presentation at Clintel from Dublin, will be shown by red, and healthy doctrines, heilsame Lehre, will be shown by blue in this talk. So the great green transition is a myth. Their argument is twofold. One is environmental damage of the present practice. But the second, more important, is climate change, due to, of course, to anthropogenic CO2 emission. Of course, it is not green, because it is watermelon. It is green on the outside and red on the inside, as all we know. So the structure of their logic is shown here. Anthropogenic CO2 emission increases CO2 level, leading to global warming, climate change, extreme weather, and so on and so on. So we should be mitigated. Stop global warming, stop climate change, stop extreme weather events. The method is the decarbonization, and the process is called green transition. And in the end, we have plenty of solar and wind energy. But a healthy doctrine tells that environmental damage, yes, it exists, but its only remedy is the temperancia in Latin language. Nearly half of the ecological footprint is CO2 emission. So, discussing the details of their arguments, anthropogenic CO2 emission is fact, but even the sign of its overall effects is questionable. I think I heard it from Professor William Hepper at first. The atmospheric CO2 concentration increase is also a fact, but only about 5% is of anthropogenic origin. The global warming, climate change, and so on, the statements are confused, controversial. They ignore completely the nature. Global natural phenomena, as we could see from the previous and before the previous presentation, for example, cannot be stopped. Mitigation, we can realize only on local scale, planting a tree, or utmost on regional scale, but not on global scale. Decarbonization is pointless, as I'm geophysicist, among others, because 1% or at least 1% of the composition of planet Earth, the whole planet, is of carbon. So what to decarbonize? And finally, the green transition is technically impossible, and it is against both humanity and nature. There were some recent developments. Last Sunday, on June 9, it became evident that the green policies are not so supported by people. And before that, already at the COP28, it turned out that the original green transition is technically impossible. And also the green transition is more harmful than the present practice. But not so many people are willing to discuss the basis of the arguments. Are the human climate change-based arguments valid or not? In the following, I would like to discuss this question. What does it mean, climate change, at United Nations and IPCC? To remind you, you have the traditional definition. It is a long-term statistics of weather according to WMO, but United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change launched the climate myth worldwide. If you look at now the website and the document, you can find the preamble, you can find their objectives. In the preamble you read that they are concerned about the atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases, which would result on average in additional warming. And in the objectives, they state that their objective is the stabilization of greenhouse gas concentration. And between the two, in page 3, they give another definition for climate change, excluding completely the whole nature. Climate change means the change of climate, which is attributed directly or indirectly to human activity that alters the composition of the global atmosphere. The whole nature is put into a new definition, natural climate variability. And the problem that since one generation, the politics, decision makers have known only that United Nations definitions. IPCC recognized both definitions, and they use in the detailed report the correct one. In the summary for policy makers, they use the United Nations definition. And surprisingly, the IPCC has two governing principles. The original governing principle concentrates only the study of human-induced climate change. But a few weeks ago, preparing this lecture, I found a new governing principles of the IPCC, a comprehensive assessment on climate change and investigation of its causes. So, since the assessment report 6, they claim as if the two definitions are the same, meaning that the natural climate variability is 0. But already 1 year before, everything was subordinated to climate change-driven policies, see the Great Reset or Agenda 2030, which is the new name of the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, we can divide the hypothesis into two groups. The healthy doctrines, we have a very complicated Earth system. The atmosphere, the climate cannot be independent of this whole Earth system. And all truth-searching approach are, I think, are healthy doctrines. Of course, the whole truth is not known to anybody, to any human being. But they have the whole truth, as you can see. Today's scientific worldview is the CO2 molecule, the cause of the climate change, plus positive feedbacks. However, for example, the water vapor is not a positive feedback. Henry's law, the solubility of gas in water, it depends on the pressure and temperature, is not a positive feedbacks. And thirdly, nature has much more fantasy. Instead of climate models, which are considered myths, forecasts should be based on real data. For example, the precipitation variation in the catchment area of the River Nile is a primary climate indicator. More than 10 years ago, Demetris Koutsoyannis published a paper showing the annual water minimum data for River Nile measured at Roda Nilometer near Cairo through 800 years. In the beginning of this year, we published another paper. We extended this 800 years to 1300 years. We put all available data by using correct mathematical method into one single time series. Okay, the difference between the two time series is the altitude of the Roda Nilometer. You can see the same persistences. The data basically are the same. And on the longer time series, you can even discover cycles, nearly 400 years cycles in the variation of the water level of River Nile. So really did not show today these in this form these figures, but the whole truth he showed, what IPCC thinks as a whole truth. Nature does not play any role in the temperature change, but and any other time series considered as a heretic view. And the observed northern hemisphere temperature changes also can be classified into two categories. The IPCC version, they measured the so-called outside temperature changes, but part of the data are extrapolated from inside. As we would measure the outside temperature and we extrapolated the temperature from outside. So it is the mixture of rural and urban meteorological stations. And removing the urban sites, on the right side you can see a version for really the outside temperature changes based exclusively on data observed outside. This is the correct way, I think. The conclusion depends, of course, on the choice of time series. This was mentioned by Willy. Let the data speak. Guusberg, who told 3 years ago, president of Clintel. And I would like to show you one example from my institute, from the Institute of Physics of the Earth and Space Science, Shopron, Hungary, just 60 kilometers from here. Certainly you have heard about the book of Javier Vinos, the Winter Gatekeeper Hypothesis. He described climate regime changes in form of super El Niño events. And we can see in this figure that they are preceded by enhanced global lighting activity. This is one of the papers of the young scientists and an American scientist. So I'm sure that there is a wealth of unexplored climate-related geophysical indicators and precursors in Earth observatory data. But people deal with narrow topics, so we should initiate a broader approach to these problems. IPCC also argues that the observed increase in the ocean heat content is huge. Okay, if you calculate it in zettajoules and not in temperatures, it is huge. In the zettajoule ranges, you can see that, and of course they state it is of anthropogenic origin. But let us make a zettajoule-based comparison. The ocean heat content increased, detected by NOAA in the last decade, is about 200 zettajoules. You can check it from the figure. And you can find data anywhere that the human primary energy consumption during the same period was only 6 zettajoules. It is also a known data that human primary energy consumption since the Industrial Revolution is nearly 40 zettajoules. What direct outcomes come from, or how much, what is how much approach? At first, that attribution to the ocean heat content increase to humans is a myth. Okay? Maybe I forgot about the heating effect of CO2 molecule. Second, attribution of the ocean heat content increase to the nature is a healthy doctrine. And thirdly, the anthropogenic climate change argument of the green transition is false. You can make the conclusion exclusively on basis of this figure. How to return to the common sense? We suggested that we should suspend the enforced primacy of current international climate policy, and we should place emphasis instead on holding open scientific debates. But which is not so evident. How to return to the common sense? The answers that can be given to the basic questions of the Earth-mankind relationship largely depend on the human values we start from. It is not only natural science, it's human science, the mankind-Earth relation. Among other things, whether we admit that nature can be made more beautiful by humans, or we deny that. This is another myth. The 17 Confucius goals of the United Nations, they were known as Sustainable Development Goals, but now it has a new name, Agenda 2030. We, as a healthy doctrine, we recommend Richard Smalley's Nobel laureate order of importance. First of all is energy, the most important, and maybe raw materials for technology, so on. If you have energy, you can make drinking water, even from seawater. If you have energy and water, you can cultivate the soil, so we have food. And we can make the environment healthier. And only solving these 4 problems, we can address realistically real societal issues as poverty, terrorism, and war, diseases, education, democracy, population, and so on. So this smelly order is logic, the United Nations is not at all. I found a very interesting paper a few years ago showing the selfish, selfless spectrum of the humanity. You can see that there is it is a normal distribution. The most people on planet Earth are normal people, but there are extreme selfish people and extreme selfless people. These are they can be illustrated who consider the planet Earth as prey, okay, violent, aggressive psychopaths, and zealous altruists. It is an unscientific view that humanity has the planet Earth in hands. So, a wide spectrum of normal people consider the nature as a gift. And we would like to represent those normal people. And never forget that the myths are created by the extremists ensemble, by both sides. Okay, chapter 4, Destined to Sustainable Development. Sustainability is a capitulation agenda. We are destined to sustainable development. It sounds surprising, but look at the physical background in the next slide. After Czernai et al., Laszlo Czernai is member of our working group. He is a double citizen of Norway and Hungary, and he is member of the Norwegian Academy of Sciences, physicist. This figure comes from here, showing the energy entropy balance of the Earth. The ingoing energy from the sun is the same as the outgoing energy from the Earth to the place. But due to the fact that the surface temperatures are different, the entropies, the ingoing entropy will be small and the outgoing entropy will be large. So there is a negative entropy, a so-called negentropy, and it is due to the tempering effect of water, liquid water, water vapor, snow, ice covering the Earth's surface, which compensates radiation imbalances of the Sun-Earth system. Here you can find the papers by Laszlo Czernai. What we have achieved this year, there is a list. I do not want to go into details. Maybe the most important that we have with such a title, What is How Much, a lecture series monthly. We started last December, and the next speaker will be Javier Vinos. And really soon, just yesterday, gave a lecture in Shopron, and Javier Vinos will give a lecture not only in Budapest, but also Shopron. We translated important interviews, Willy Soon Tucker Carlson interview, Richard Lindzen interview, István Markó interview from 7 years ago. And we made Hungarian subtitles to the Climate, the movie. I think we were one of the first ones. And we will translate Vinos' book into Hungarian. And we give voluntary but unsolicited advice to Hungarian Academy of Sciences, where I have a war with my member colleagues at the Earth Science section, and also we give advices to decision makers. But we are isolated. But the greatest Hungarian achievement is due to a guy, his name is Frank Füredi. He's the head of the so-called MCC Center in Brussels. They organized end of May a climate change ghetto conference. Its title was Beyond the Consensus. Here you can see Frank Füredi, Richard Lindzen, and Samuel Furfari, and all the YouTube records are available here. 5 days later, the Politico has a very hard reaction. Orban's think tank is on a mission to break Europe climate consensus. Note that the Politico uses for itself the red color. It was not me who put. So something might happen, maybe we expect. Closing thoughts. The consequence of imposing a dogmatic concept, ignoring natural reality, and aligning exclusively to so-called economic and social realities. So many times I heard this expression for Hungarian politicians. Even the President of the Republic. The Prime Minister, I think, is more intelligent. These consequences are imaginably serious. Believing United Nations anthropogenic climate change is a historical error. Okay, we can forgive because we know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We know it, Hungary, maybe it is international thing. Making others believe it, it is a historical crime. Third, our suggestion for honest decision makers. We quote William Nordhaus, a Nobel laureate economist, "To err is human, so to be humble is divine." Suggestion for ourselves. Also, we go back to Paul the Apostle, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, correct, rebuke, encourage with great patience and teaching. Also from second letter to Timothy. And we all have good reasons to be optimistic, not only on short term, but on long term. I will not tell you this poem written by a Hungarian Nobel laureate 60 years ago, but particularly timely today. It is the fifth prayer from his Psalmus Humanus and 6 prayers. And one of our achievements was to collect these poems and republish it by the Batyány Society of Professor in this spring, and you can find on the internet all the whole text, both in Hungarian and English language. Thank you for your kind attention.